Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going on a pretty interesting journey, looking at what might be next using some really unique sources.
Definitely.
We've got this deep dive into something called predictive linguistics, basically using online language, how people talk online to forecast trends, and then completely shifting gears, we'll explore this fascinating substance, carbon-60.
A real mix today, then. Looking forward to unpacking it.
Absolutely. For everyone listening, get ready. We're diving into some, let's say, mind-bending possibilities here.
Let's do it.
All right, let's jump straight in. Predictive linguistics. Now, one source you shared was an interview with Clif High, the guy behind this method. The basic idea, he tracks emotionally charged words online, right, to see where society's headed.
Yeah, that's the core concept. It's built on this assumption that really strong emotions popping up in online discussions, they act like an early warning signal for big social shifts. Think of it like the whole internet as this giant collective mood ring almost. So by tracking these spikes in intense language around certain topics, the model tries to pinpoint where major changes might be brewing.
So back when this interview happened, his data was showing more than just financial shifts, like bigger societal stuff.
Exactly. That's what was interesting. The emotional charge wasn't just, tied to money or markets. It pointed towards these broader global social transformations.
Right.
He specifically flagged December and then the first, say, 6 months of the next year as a really key period, a time to watch for significant, societal restructuring.
Okay, we have to talk crypto. Always a wild ride. What was his linguistic crystal ball saying about that world back then?
Well, it's funny you say crystal ball. Initially, the system wasn't quite sharp enough to tell the difference between specific coins.
Okay.
It was picking up more on the general emotional temperature, the power dynamics playing out within the crypto space overall. So the early signals were more about the big picture vibe, not buy this coin.
So less about picking winners and losers, more about the ecosystem's feeling.
Precisely. But he did mention something called immediacy data. This was language with a really short fuse, emotionally speaking, like stuff reflecting feelings about the next 3 weeks or so.
Okay.
And that data tended to be richer, more detailed, easier to connect specific language patterns to potential events that could hit the bigger crypto efforts. He thought maybe by mid-December, it might get granular enough to track individual coins better.
And looking a bit further out, what was the grander vision for crypto from his analysis?
Well, this is where it gets really interesting. He predicted a major societal pivot, a move towards a world where crypto plays a really central role.
A cryptocentric world.
Yeah, basically. And he pegged that shift starting around the end of Q1 2018, so March. Yes. Now, he did add a caveat saying, full mainstream adoption like your grandma using it daily, that could take a lot longer, maybe stretching out to 2024 even.
He used that image, didn't he?
Oh, it's a swim.
Sparks at Thanksgiving, people sharing crypto stories.
Yeah. Yes. That was it. He saw those stories, people telling family, hey, I actually made some money with this crypto thing, as these little sparks.
Igniting interest?
Exactly. Igniting wider adoption. Each story acts like a little catalyst, spreading awareness, making others think, maybe I should check this out. He compared it to, nationwide neurogenesis, but for crypto knowledge.
Wow.
He felt that by 2017, the U.S. had hit this critical point, Enough people knew about it, were maybe dabbling in it.
And he connected these sparks to the old financial system being, what was it, Tinder dry fuel?
Right. Think of the traditional system, low bond yields, maybe people feeling a bit stuck financially as being really receptive, dry ground.
Ready for something new?
Ready for something new. So these crypto success stories, the sparks, land on this landscape and whoosh, rapid spread of interest, people looking to crypto as an alternative.
Okay, concrete predictions then. Bitcoin. Did he give numbers?
He did. He mentioned Bitcoin hitting around $13,880 by March, then sometime between May and August, crossing $20,000.
$20,000.
Yeah, and potentially even hitting $40,000 in certain markets, like he mentioned Zimbabwe, where, local conditions might push it higher. But the main point wasn't just the price target. It was this bigger theme, widespread adoption kicking off around March.
And it wasn't just about numbers going up. He mentioned a gold rush for talent, too. in the crypto space.
Exactly right. He expected that as crypto grew, companies in the space would get increasingly desperate to hire people, developers, marketers, you name it.
The scramble for skills.
A real scramble. This gold rush for talent would ramp up from March onwards. You'd see it in the hiring ads, the salaries being offered.
But I also warned about the dodgy side of crypto. MLM schemes, pyramid scams.
Oh, absolutely. He foresaw those things imploding.
Yeah.
Big, ugly collapses. He mentioned BitConnect as the kind of thing he expected. Big craters left behind.
Sounds bad.
It is bad, but his analysis suggested that the overall momentum and sheer level of activity in crypto would be so high that these blow-ups, while damaging, would probably be short-lived distractions. They wouldn't derail the main trend.
Okay. Moving beyond finance then.
Yeah.
Did he see disruption coming for regular businesses? Traditional models?
Yes, and that's fascinating too. A potential fundamental shift away from how things often work now. That whole just-in-time delivery model, often financed by taking on debt.
Yeah.
He saw a possible move towards something different, like token-based funding. Manufacturers could maybe fund getting their resources, raw materials, whatever, by issuing digital tokens directly.
So cutting out banks? Maybe. And connecting directly with buyers?
Potentially, yeah. It could lead to much more direct producer-to-consumer links. Imagine buying a token today that represents, I don't know, a share of a future product, straight from the company making it, bypassing traditional retail, maybe.
That's a serious shakeup. What about governance, how we run things? Did the linguistics point to changes there?
This is where it got, well, really interesting and also quite specific geographically. The language patterns suggested a possible rise in more localized governance.
Localized, like city level.
Municipal, regional, yeah, particularly in places like Australia and New Zealand. He felt their population size and maybe social structures made them more likely candidates for successful shifts like that compared to, say, the U.S. or Europe.
So the outlook for a big governance change in the U.S. wasn't as immediate?
Immediately, no. His read was that the level of perceived corruption, as he put it, in the U.S. system would likely need to be, well, his words were burned out before any major positive restructuring could really take hold.
Burned out. Strong words.
Very. He saw potential further down the line in the longer-term data, but even that hinted at a pretty significant period of, upheaval and rebuilding first.
Okay, let's switch slightly.
Yeah.
What about technologies beyond blockchain, alternatives? Any signals there?
The data there sounded pretty messy. He used the word chaos when talking about potential blockchain replacements. Things like DAGs, directed acyclic graphs, or block trees.
So even if they're technically interesting, no clear winner emerging.
Right. Despite some possibly having technical advantages, he wasn't seeing strong signals that any of them would achieve, broad success anytime soon.
And why the chaos? Just because blockchain had such a head start.
That seemed to be a big part of it. The sheer amount of emotional energy and obviously money already invested in blockchain.
Yeah.
Especially with all the newcomers flooding in, it creates a lot of inertia.
Makes sense. Hard to switch tracks.
Very hard. Plus, the perceived value of blockchain is its robust history, that immutable record. People trust that, or are learning to. Shifting away is a big ask in the short term.
Did he mention any specific digital tokens that stood out in the data, showing positive vibes?
He did call out a couple. OMG Omusigo showed a really significant positive emotional spike. That suggested something interesting might happen within, the next 3 weeks, maybe a big contract or partnership.
Okay. Anyone else?
NEO also had positive indicators, though maybe not quite as striking as OMG.
And he connected these tokens, or ones like them, to a bigger potential trigger point. Something about government payroll on the blockchain.
Yeah, that was an interesting idea he floated. He saw the possibility of a government somewhere adopting a token, maybe OMG or NEO, or he mentioned gateway coins like 10x2 for paying employees using blockchain.
Wow, okay.
He saw that specific event, if it happened, as being a really powerful temporal marker, like a starting gun. He thought it could signal the beginning of a major uptrend for the entire digital asset market, probably within 90 days.
So not just boosting that one coin, but lifting the whole tide.
Exactly, lifting all boats, essentially. Even if it started regionally, the implication was broader market impact.
Man, this is painting such a dynamic, almost volatile picture. And then he even brought up Antarctica and emerging tech. That sounds like movie plot stuff.
It definitely veers into the unexpected, doesn't it? The data, as he read it, suggested this weird contrast. You've got potential social chaos brewing in North America, but happening at the same time as crypto adoption is really taking off.
A strange mix.
a real dichotomy.
Yeah.
And then he talked about these easily ascertainable sets, like clear data patterns related to Antarctica and new technologies starting to be slowly revealed.
Revealed by whom? And why Antarctica? What's the connection?
His interpretation linked it to the U.S. economic situation, like
Okay.
a pressure to roll out certain advanced technologies to stay competitive globally in the future. He also saw a coming shift in the social pecking order, a new USA population.
Okay.
And Antarctica fits in as a potential source of leverage. The idea was that information, or maybe even technologies, discovered or developed down there could be used during this period of social change, perhaps alongside revelations about past events.
Revelations, like what?
Well, he threw out things like chemtrails as an example of truths that might come out. The idea being that certain smart minds could use the upheaval, plus maybe information from Antarctica, to reshape the social order.
So figures like Tom DeLonge, who talks about UFOs and these sightings of weird triangles, they could be part of this rollout.
That was how he connected the dots, yeah. He saw people like DeLonge and these public sightings of, floaty triangles as potential early signs, indicators that technology, maybe with origins somehow linked to Antarctica, was starting to filter out through new companies.
Okay, wow. My head is spinning a bit now. Let's do a complete 180. Pivot entirely to something else that sounds just as intriguing. Carbon-60. C60, you called it a super antioxidant. What exactly is this stuff?
Right, total shift. So C60, at its most basic, is a molecule. It's made of 60 carbon atoms, and they're arranged in an amazing spherical structure. Think of a hollow soccer ball made of carbon atoms.
Like a buckyball.
Exactly. It's a type of fullerene, often called a buckyball. What's really neat is that cage-like shape. It's hollow inside, big enough for tiny atoms like hydrogen to actually pass right through. And the points where the carbon atoms join up, they can also grab onto other atoms, hydrogen included.
And because it's carbon, like us, how does it interact with our bodies?
Well, that's key. Since we're carbon-based life, our bodies generally handle it well. It's digestible, apparently, and it seems to be able to get across cell membranes pretty easily, even the blood-brain barrier, which is usually really selective.
Okay, so it can get everywhere. What makes it super as an antioxidant then?
Its power comes from that structure, especially its relationship with hydrogen. It seems to sort of glom onto hydrogen atoms, and those hydrogen atoms, in turn, are really good at neutralizing free radicals, those unstable oxygen molecules that cause oxidative stress and damage in our cells.
So it mops up the bad stuff.
It mops it up very effectively. Some studies suggested it's way more potent than, say, vitamin C, like over 170 times more potent at scavenging free radicals. And apparently it tends to cluster around mitochondria.
The cell's power plants.
Exactly, which are major sources and victims of oxidative damage. So it goes right to a key spot.
And this antioxidant effect, is that the link to potential anti-aging?
That's the theory, precisely. Free radicals damage lots of things, including telomeres. Those are the little caps on the ends of our chromosomes, They shorten each time a cell divides, and that's linked to aging.
Right. Cell lifespan.
Exactly. So by reducing the free radical damage, C60 could help protect those telomeres. And the results in animal studies were, well, pretty dramatic. Rats given C60 lived significantly longer.
How much longer?
In some studies, like double or even triple their normal lifespan. And crucially, they stayed healthier for longer too. They didn't just linger, they were more youthful for longer. That's where the whole fountain of youth talk comes from.
Wow. And any hints of that in humans? Telomere effects.
There's some early buzz, yeah. Indications of potential telomere regeneration in humans taking it, but that's definitely not proven science yet. Still very much in the research and anecdotal phase.
Okay. Any known downsides? Risks we should know about?
For general use, there aren't widespread reports of serious negative side effects. But because it can bind to things, there's a theoretical possibility it might interfere with pharmaceutical drugs.
How so?
Like, it could potentially bind to the drug molecule itself, maybe reducing its absorption or effectiveness if you take them close together. So maybe spacing out C60 in medications would be wise, just in case.
Makes sense. How do you even prepare this or take it? It's not like buying vitamins, I assume.
No, definitely not. You typically start with purified C60 powder, which needs to be properly dissolved and saturated into an edible oil. Olive oil is common. Sunflower, avocado.
Needs to be in oil.
Yes, that seems crucial for absorption. And it's not just mixing it in, it usually involves using a magnetic stirrer for quite a long time, like weeks sometimes, in the dark, away from light and moisture to get it fully saturated.
A bit of a process.
A bit of a process. And then when you ingest the oil, the liver seems to play a key role in processing it and getting it distributed through your system.
And you mentioned anecdotes from 6-foot rats.
Yeah.
People trying it themselves. What are they reporting?
Yeah, the self-experimenter reports are fascinating, though obviously anecdotal. Common themes include things like weight loss, maybe linked to better calorie efficiency, a feeling of detoxification, improvements in BMI. Some people report reduced arthritic pain.
Interesting. Anything else?
Better nerve conductivity. Some say improved cognition, which leads to speculation about, potential benefits for things like dementia. Oh, and improved vision comes up quite a bit, too.
Quite a list. What about dosage? How much do people typically take?
It seems consistency is more important than massive doses. After maybe an initial period of taking a bit more to build up levels, the general advice seems to be a regular low daily dose, maybe a tablespoon or even just a teaspoon of the C60 infused oil each day to maintain saturation.
And you also mentioned taking it with certain foods might boost it.
Yes, that's another interesting aspect. It seems to work particularly well if taken with something that helps create hydrogen in the gut.
Like what?
Things like apples, apparently, whole milk kefirs, whey protein, even certain carbs found in vegetables. The idea is that the extra hydrogen gives the C60 more ammunition, so to speak, to fight those free radicals.
This stuff sounds pretty incredible. What's the history? Is it brand new?
Well, yes and no. The molecule itself was discovered in the 80s, leading to a Nobel Prize. But interestingly, some connect the concept back to things like the alchemist's philosopher's stone, that mythical substance for longevity.
No way.
Yeah. And C60 actually occurs naturally, just in tiny, tiny amounts, like in the soot from burning wood or even when you strike a match. It's also found in some minerals like shunite and in fulvic acids. But you need the purified form, properly dissolved in oil, to get these reported biological effects. You can't just eat soot or rocks.
Right, probably not advisable. So if it has all this potential, why isn't it everywhere? Why aren't doctors prescribing it?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And the crucial disclaimer, C60 is not approved by the FDA or any similar health body anywhere for human consumption.
So it's not regulated as a supplement.
Nope. Officially, it's often classified as an industrial lubricant or for research purposes only. So anyone using it is doing so experimentally, completely off-label, and at their own risk. This is absolutely not medical advice we're giving here.
Understood. It's just fascinating how these two threads, analyzing language for future trends and exploring this unique molecule, both point towards potentially massive changes ahead.
They really do. You've got these indicators of social and technological shifts, from the linguistic analysis, the whole dynamic crypto scene, potential disruptions, and then this substance, C60, hinting at fundamental changes in health and maybe even lifespan. It paints a picture of a future that could be radically different.
Definitely. So as we wrap up this deep dive, maybe a final thought for everyone listening to chew on. If we genuinely face possibilities like significantly longer lifespans, thanks to things like C60 perhaps, and these fundamental shifts in tech and how we organize ourselves, predicted by the language analysis, how might that change everything? Our priorities, our whole concept of time. What new challenges or opportunities pop up when you start thinking that far ahead?
A lot to ponder.
Indeed. It's certainly a lot to consider. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.